Great to see everybody. Kelvin Chin here. Those of you who don't know who I am, my name's Kelvin Chin, and I'll be hosting this panel discussion today on overcoming pain through meditation. So just a quick, very short 3 or 4 sentence summary of my background for those of you who don't know me. I've been teaching meditation for this May it'll be 49 years. I don't even feel that old. Anyway, so I've been teaching meditation a long time, this lifetime, and I've been meditating for over 50 years. I started when I was a teenager, and when I was in college, actually. And I went to Dartmouth College up in New Hampshire, learned to meditate. I was very, very stressed out. We're going to talk, probably inevitably touch a little bit on anxiety today, but we did a panel on anxiety previously, which you can see on my YouTube channel. We did a couple of different sessions on anxiety, a panel discussion with some of my students who had very, very high anxiety. And you can see those videos on my YouTube channel. Just type my name in YouTube, you find it. But today we're going to focus more on physical pain. I've been teaching meditation, as I said, for a very long time to many, many thousands of people, 55 countries so far as of this year, 55 countries worldwide, teaching like this. I've been teaching like this on Zoom or GoToMeeting, other video conference platforms, in other words, that predated the existence of Zoom for about 10, 12 years now. What I teach is a very easy technique. That's probably the primary differentiator in simplistic language, simplistic meaning summary language, without getting into details, in other words, of what I teach that's different from other meditation techniques that are out there. And so I'm a proponent of doing any meditation technique, but easier, more effortless, the better, the more effective. And you'll hear some of the students talk about that today. I'm just going to weave in comments here and there. I want to mainly kind of give the floor to them, 3 of my students who've graciously, thankfully, volunteered to share some of their very personal stories with you about physical pain that they've experienced through various situations. I'll let them describe that to you, and how the meditation has helped them. Everybody's different. Everybody is unique on planet Earth. We got 8 billion of us human beings on planet Earth now. Everybody's experience of life is different. Everybody's experience of pain is different, whether it's mental or physical pain. Again, we're going to focus more on physical pain, but it affects us mentally, of course, because the mind, body are connected, right? Mind affects the body, body affects the mind. It's a two-way street. But again, how can we manage the pain if we have the pain? And is it possible to reduce that sometimes overwhelming experience of pain in a way that is relatively easy? And so that's what we're going to focus our discussion on today. And we're going to open it up to questions and so forth after these folks share their experiences with us. And as I said, I'll weave in kind of comments here and there as appropriate. So our 3 panelists today are Janet, who's dressed in bright colors of red here. So those of you who are trying to figure out of the, how many people we have, like 30 people on here. Where's Janet? She's the one in red on your screen. And Rosary, wherever she is, she's waving at you now. And actually, we have red and red. Rosary, you have red hair, and Janet's wearing a red top. And, and then Sharon is with us as well, and she's waving there, and she's the one in darker colors. But a very bright mind and a bright heart and a bright spirit. So why don't we start with you, Janet, and tell your story and the situation that brought about the pain. And you can talk about I know that you have a couple of different possibilities, so you can pick and choose, or you could tell both, all of them if you want. It's up to you. Okay.
Well, the first one was when I broke my arm. I was attacked by a dog, got knocked down, broke my arm, had to have surgery, a plate in my arm. And then my daughter introduced me to you when I was going through recovery. So I used the meditation process for that portion of the recovery. And it was very helpful to be able to meditate and focus not so much on the pain, but just work through it. So I did that with my arm surgery. But then more recently in November, I had cataract surgery. And I was told that my procedure would not be the typical cataract procedure because I had some complications and my pupils did not dilate properly, and they would have to go in and surgically open the pupil and then manipulate it during the procedure in order to keep the pupil open during the procedure. And I did get a sedative while I was in the waiting room before I went into the surgery suite. And they told me that they would have to, because my pupils didn't dilate, I would need extra numbing, and they would have to put tiny little needles down in here to numb the eye, but I wouldn't feel them because I would be somewhat sedated. Well, they were wrong. I did feel, I did feel the needles going in, but I got through that. And during the procedure, it took longer than I expected. And I started to feel some anxiety and began to move a little bit, which I was told you absolutely can't move a muscle. So I was getting very anxious about it because it was taking so long. So, and then I felt some of the little twinges of pain with the light going into my eyes and everything. So anyway, I thought I have to use my word. I have to begin to meditate. It's the only way I'm going to get through. So I did. I started with the word and then I drifted just into meditation and just went with it. And I could hear them talking in the background, but I tried to weed it out and just stay there in my meditation. And eventually they said, we're finished. So that was about the size of it.
Yeah, so it really helped you through that was so unexpected, right? The expectation was that you wouldn't feel anything.
Right. I thought I'd be numb enough that I just wouldn't feel it and wouldn't think about it. It wouldn't be there, but it was present. It was definitely present, which created the anxiety. And that's when I began to meditate, and it really, really helped. I got through the rest of the procedure, which probably was another 20 minutes at least, maybe longer. And it worked. I got through it without all that anxious feeling.
That's great, Janet. Thank you for sharing that. That what jumps to my mind as I kind of project myself in my imagination, being in your situation at that time, is they've said certain things to me, and of course they're doing it based on their medical knowledge, and they can't predict exactly what's going to happen, but unexpected things happen. And the point is that unexpected things can happen in our lives at any time. And so when I projected my imagination into your situation, I was thinking, at least I have this meditation technique to fall back on. It's something that you always have. It's like because think about it, you're in that situation and they're telling you not to move a muscle, because if you move a muscle, you could mess up the whole surgery, is what they're saying, right? And and then of course that creates more anxiety, which increases the likelihood that you are going to move a muscle. And so the meditation gave you a tool to be more in what the state that they want you in, which is don't move a muscle.
And be more in control.
Yes.
Could I say something too?
Kelly, go ahead. Yeah.
Just because Janet's my mother, and I picked her up from the surgery, and I'm only saying this for all those who ever have to have cataract surgery, because it's scary what she went through, but she's so ready to do it. She has to do the next eye in a couple weeks, and she's fine because of the meditation. She said, I know I can meditate and I'm going to be okay. So just the fact, I said, Mom, are you nervous about the next one? She goes, nope. I see so well with this eye, and the meditation really, like, Mom, I think you forget because there's some distance, but when I picked you up, You
Yeah.
said to me, thank God I was able to meditate through that because it saved me. Those were your words, like right out of surgery. So I just
Yeah.
wanted to
Right.
No,
confirm.
that's great, Kelly. Thanks for sharing that. That's
And that
perfect.
was in November. That was November. And now I have to go back in March for the second one.
Ah,
And of course, it's a little anxiety provoking, but I know the meditation got me through. When I began to move, I know the meditation got me through that. So I have that tool now.
yeah, yeah. And again, I'm projecting my imagination into that situation that you were in. And it's like, if I'm in that situation, I'm alone, really, right?
Right.
It's
Right.
not like I can't really talk to them. I could talk to them, but I mean, it's like, okay, what are they going to do? You know, it's like, and I can't move. I can't move a muscle. If I'm talking, I'm moving a muscle.
The trick, you can't move.
You can't move. I can't really talk to them. And so it's like, you're like alone. You're in a vacuum almost. And that's, let me just step back for a second. You know, this is not scripted, as you guys can kind of tell. So another thing that I do is I help people with death and dying. And some people are afraid of dying. And I help them with that. And that's one of my specialties. So maybe some of you know this, some of you don't know this.
Mhm.
But one thing that I have said to people, and I just had you know, he became a friend of mine. I meditated with him privately after I taught him to meditate. I probably meditate. I actually counted after he died. He had, was it blastoma, something, blastoma, whatever the word is.
Glioblastoma.
Glioblastoma multiforme.
Glioblastoma.
Yeah, he had a brain tumor. And for a year, and I meditated with him almost every day, 4, 5, 6 times a week.
Wow.
160 times we meditated together. And I told him, getting a little emotional, I said, at some point, you probably aren't going to be able to speak, communicate, and you'll still be thinking, and your mind is still going to be sharp. You can't speak. You're going to feel alone, but you're not going to be. You're going to have this technique. You're going to have this technique to do. You're never, ever forget it. You know, so I kind of, you're talking about your experience. I project my imagination into that situation, Janet. And it's like, I'm alone, you know, but I have this to fall back on. Always. You never, ever forget this simple technique that I've taught you, some of you guys, right?
Right. And I really had to meditate some before I even went in for the procedure.
Yes.
Was the thought of them cutting my pupil open and manually manipulating it because the drops did not dilate my pupil. That was a frightening thought.
Exactly.
So I just tried to meditate before I even went in for the surgery.
Yeah. No, that's great.
I didn't want to think about that.
Yeah. Well, what the meditation does is it lessens the intensity of the thoughts. Sometimes the thoughts will go away that you're having like that. That happens sometimes. Not always, but it will lessen the intensity. The intensity of the thoughts is that's what really freaks us out. I mean, it's the intensity. Look, I talk about, I just told you guys, I talk about death and dying all the time with people. It's not the death and dying thoughts. I mean, I talk about it. I'm not afraid. It doesn't stir up any fears in me. So it's not the thought per se. There's something else associated with it. And so the meditation helps reduce the intensity. That's what the other association, or the intensities that go along with the thought. That's what makes us, that's really what we don't want, is the intensity. You know, little minor, little bothersome, or this and that. We can handle that, right? I tell people it's like, it helps get from the 150-foot tidal wave part of the ocean to the 2 or 3 foot swells. The 2 or 3 foot swells part of the ocean, we can handle that. 150-foot waves, not so much, right? So that's how the meditation helps us. That's what I mean when I say, you know, reducing the intensity. But thank you so much, Janet. That's great. Thank you for sharing that.
Welcome. Thank you.
Sharon, and then we'll go to Rosary after Sharon. Sharon, you want to share?
Sure, sure. My journey with acute and chronic pain came in 1990 when I was diagnosed with inflammatory bowel disease, Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis. And subsequently after that, I lost my large intestine, had a temporary ileostomy, lost my gallbladder, and then um, after the birth of my two sons, I lost my uterus and then ovaries. So with why I mention all of those things is because my insides are pretty much very uh, let's just say adhesions. You know, a lot of adhesions on my insides, which tend to create sometimes intermittent small bowel obstructions, and that's when I met when they started to become more frequent, more often than not. 2011 to 2017, I was in the hospital for at least 50 to 60% of the time for each of those years. And a few years ago, I had the blessing to meet Kelvin and learn the technique. And in many hospital stays, he held space for me. He meditated with me. Very acute pain with blockages, and very controlled, you know, in the hospital with pretty hardcore medications there. But in between, when the medication ran out and the pain became acute, and then, you know, you have to wait, you know, an hour or two, I would do the meditation and that would put me to sleep. Sometimes I would sleep through my next medication, and definitely that intensity decreased. So that's number one. Number two is I had a blockage, and it was 2019, I believe, and I do sometimes community theater shows, and 2019, so pre-COVID, and I got in the show and I could just feel it. And maybe it was also anxiety and nerves, and you know, my bowels were backing up, and I said, oh my gosh, the understudy is going to go on. I'm not going to make this. And I called Kelvin, he meditated with me, and he helped me work through, you know, that blockage, and I performed that weekend. So very grateful. And then 2021 happened in June. I was in the hospital for a month with COVID. It was very scary. I was very lucky though, because I did get the dexamethasone and all those remdesivir and the like, and monoclonal antibodies. But and I was thinking of the correlation with the anxiety. You know, I keep pulse ox, but my pulse ox, you know, in the hospital, and they have, you know, the radar going on there, and I could see that, you know, when it was starting to get 80.
Pulse oxygen. That's oxygen level.
Yes. And then again, as you know, Kelvin is so gracious with his times, where, you know, he's, hey, okay, you want to meditate? Let's meditate. And I can actually see it measured that, you know, my pulse ox went back up, you know, above that 95 after, during, you know, meditation. So that's just like proof. And I know Kelvin talks about, you know, those, you know, EEGs that they used to do during meditation too, in the time when they were doing these studies. And lastly, sorry, I just wanted to bring this up because three different things. So blockage pain, acute chronic pain, COVID, you know, the oxygen levels. And then recently, still getting my voice back here, but November 15th, I had bronchitis, then I had the flu. It was just layered upon layer. So I had a huge cough. And then December 15th, I had this pain in my right side, and it felt like, I don't know if you ever had like a Charlie horse or a stitch, and it's very acute. And it wasn't going away. And I was like, wow, this is really bad. And I just went to the sound, you know, and I went to the sound, and I went to urgent care. They said, oh, they took an x-ray, nothing there. And then I went to a primary doctor. They did more x-rays. And from the cough, I actually had a fractured rib. And subsequently, I know, and they gave, you know, some pretty hardcore medication at that point. And by that point, the acute part of the pain, was 2 weeks later, I really didn't need it, So even with, yeah, and I know Janet talked about, the something structurally broken as well. So even with that, and I think the reason why I was thinking about this, when we said, hey, let's do this, overcoming the pain, it's, for me, it changed my relationship with pain. So it's almost like when we have the pain and our tendency is, irritability, anxiety, we want to fight against it because that's our natural limbic caretakers to say something's attacking us and we want to get back into our well-being. And the sound meditation turns down that amygdala, which is that alarm system to say you're under attack, right? Your pain, you're under attack. So it calms down that, the brain waves and the amygdala. And then we change that relationship with pain. Does it take away the pain? Perhaps not, but it can, those intensity of thoughts decrease, and then the possibility of the intensity of the pain decreasing. So that's all I've got. I hope that was helpful.
Oh, that's awesome, Sharon. That's great. Sharon, you can tell Sharon, she does public speaking, so you can tell she's done this before. So, but that was great. Very well organized and really clear, Sharon. Thank you so much for sharing. We're going to open up for questions. If you guys can ask people questions in a few minutes after we hear from Rosary, but that's great, Sharon. I'm so happy to be able to help you in all these different ways and so forth, and meditate with you, whenever. And so you've heard people say this. So I do this. So some of you don't know me, and so now you know. I meditate with people privately outside of the meditation class. It's a 4-day class, and you learn the technique. But people who have a need, I'm here to help people. So that's great. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm so happy that the technique has helped you so much in these different situations. Yeah. Rosary.
Hi. Hi.
Good to see you.
Hi. Well, I have Parkinson's, and I've had it since before 2004. And I say 2004 because that's when I had to stop skiing, something I really loved, but I just couldn't do it anymore. And I didn't know I had Parkinson's. I had all the symptoms. I was falling and everything. In fact, I had one fall that I just fell off a ladder, and one bump, I lost 2.5 inches in height. And that has given me some chronic disc compression in my back, which is an everyday problem, but that's nothing compared to what's been going on with the Parkinson's, which is something people just don't understand, because every patient who has it, or every person who has it, it's different. It's not the same for everybody. But what happened to me is what Parkinson's will do, it'll slow down the digestive system. You will eat breakfast at 8 in the morning, 9 in the morning, and you're still digesting it in the afternoon. So it's a slow process. And that problem so is the elimination. So I was having bowel issues. I was having digestive issues. It gets worse and worse and worse. It never improves. One day I was in such pain because my body is now rejecting foods, all sugars, anything raw vegetables I can't have. It just hurts so bad. It's so bad. Even the passing of a stool, it's just painful. And one day it was so bad, I texted Kelvin, and he told me the story about Joe Namath, and how Joe Namath was able to overcome some terrible pain after, I think it was a shoulder surgery after an injury in a game. And so we meditated, and I tell you, it was just like 2 minutes, and that pain was like 95% gone. I says, "You're magic. How did you do that?" Because we had been meditating for a different reason. I met Kelvin in 2020, December, at a meeting, at an IANS meeting, International Association of Near-Death Studies. And after his talk was over, he talked about anxiety. I said, I have severe anxiety. And it happened when COVID started. When the sun went down, I got so depressed. I mean, I was suicidal. It was serious. I think it's because I didn't see anybody. I was confined. If I could have just hugged somebody, that would have helped a lot. But that didn't happen. And when I met him, he says, I can do this. He says, I've helped other people. So that's how we met. And when I had this pain, and I told him about that, he says, well, we can take care of that. And he did, like I just explained. But what we did together was the same thing we do for the pain and the anxiety, was the same meditation. But what I recall him telling me was, when you think of the word, when you think of the sound, do it so gently, ever so gently. And sure enough, it just took my mind off my pain. It just absorbed the pain, and it just went away. It just was gone. I was so happy. I was just so happy. And since then, I've had continued pain because this digestive problem does not cease to exist. It just keeps going. And I'm under medical care. Oh man, I've had so many tests and everything. Everybody says, you're fine. There, no obstructions, no reason why you should have all this problem. But I think because of the Parkinson's, it complicates things. So what's my worst problem, the anxiety or the pain? It's pretty even now, but the anxiety is still there, and I can just drop right into the meditation and ease it. I can ease it right away, like 50% right away. Then pretty soon it's gone. It's gone. I am so grateful to Kelvin. Thank you. Thank you so much. I don't know how else to express my gratitude except to share with all of you that it's an easy process. He's with you for life, or his life for sure. And he's younger than me, so he's going to outlive me. And what I like about Kelvin, he's non-judgmental. I can tell him the craziest stories about my health situation, and he doesn't think I'm crazy. Or if I talk to my daughter, or if I talk to my friends, they look at me like, where are you coming from? I've never heard of such a thing, because some of these things are pretty unique. Like you said, Kelvin, everybody's different. We're way different, but life is worth living. It truly is. And Janet, you had that eye surgery, cataract. I'm going to have it on the 31st of this month, and I'm panicking. But when I listened to you and you explained today, wow, I feel my anxiety just vanished. And I thank you very much. Thank you for explaining. Yeah.
That I could help.
Thank you, Rosary. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah.
Rosary, can I say one more thing?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want you to know, the doctor who did my mom's surgery, she's like the best. She said the experience my mom had is so unusual.
Yes.
She almost never, ever hears this, that people feel it. So don't worry. It's really, really unusual. It was just something that happened. Like you said, everyone's different. And she said, I wish I had told you. All you would have had to do is kind of raise your hand, and we could have given you a little bit more anesthetic. Like my mom just was so paralyzed because she knew she couldn't move, but you can. And she said, this is so unusual that this happens. Most people, 99% of people don't feel it.
Yeah.
So don't worry.
Well, I have macular degeneration in both eyes, but the cataracts is really bad in one, so they want to correct that. And I know of people who have had cataract surgery, who have macular, who have gone blind. So I guess that's what's in the back of my mind. So lately I've been covering up my right eye, the one that's going to get the surgery, and see if I can watch TV and read with just the left eye. So I won't have, if I have to have just the use of one eye, that's better than nothing, But when you tell me the meditation pulled you through, and when you tell me that you can ask for more anesthetic.
Right.
I have this knowledge now. Yeah, because
Exactly.
thank you.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that with her, Kelly.
I'm so grateful.
Great.
Yeah.
Good. Great. So you heard, I want to open it up for questions for people to ask me or the panelists. And if anybody else has anything to share. I want to read something from Anne Marie, who was not able to be here. She was going to share something, even though she was not on the panel, but she couldn't be here. But she sent me something, and I'll read it to you. Anne Marie sent this. She said, I have to tell you a story, a true story. A few days ago, I was working like a maniac in the yard to get cleaned up before it starts snowing here again. She lives in Michigan, I think. I have some bone spurs and arthritis in my back from doing dental hygiene. She was a dental hygienist for, I don't know, 30 years or something, many decades. I have some bone spurs and arthritis in my back from doing dental hygiene, along with that T6 fracture. So T6, thoracic 6. So it's a vertebrae in the back, in the middle of the back, basically. T6 fracture, which still bugs me now and then. To make a long story short, the next day, I couldn't get out of bed from back pain and sciatica. It was buzzing down my legs. There was the pain, the sensation was buzzing down from her low back. That's what sciatica, low back down her legs, which is not good because that means it's a pinched nerve, it's subluxated, okay? I immediately started meditating. I did med napping all day. Med napping is something, for those of you who don't know, I suggest to my students sometimes, med napping, napping. One of my old girlfriends came up with this phrase, med napping, meditate and nap, meditate and nap, meditate and nap. You just kind of meditate, you fall asleep, you meditate and you fall asleep. So if you're not feeling well, this is what I tell my students to do. So she did med napping all day, and every time I meditated and went into the pain with no expectation, it would relieve for a few hours. So what does she mean by no expectation? That means not resisting the pain. So this is what my students all learned from me in the classes, for example, whether it's pain or whether it's mental or physical pain. So we're talking about physical pain today, but same thing with mental pain. If you have any thoughts that you don't like, what's the worst thing to do? Try to push them out, right? You try to push out thoughts you don't want, what happens? Comes back 10 times stronger, right? It does not work. Does not work. So that's what she's referring to here. She says, I went into the pain with no expectation and it would relieve for a few hours. I did this constantly for 3 days in med napping and meditating, napping, and not resisting the pain, basically. I did this constantly for 3 days, and today, like magic, it was gone when I woke up. In the past, it's taken muscle relaxers, meloxicam, I guess that's a pharmaceutical drug, and about a week to work through it. Amazing, 3 days is it. So that's another example of how the approach that I teach helps somebody with very acute physical pain from, surgeries and back bone spurs and arthritis and so forth. Okay, good. So let's open it up for questions from folks. People have questions for me or anybody that you want to ask who's spoken today? Just take yourself off of Marlene, you're muted still.
You're in town at the lake behind town. Supposed to be in a huge RV. You're in the truck.
My father, Pastor.
Oh, somebody has their TV on or something.
Sorry, that's me. I'll mute. Sorry.
I just muted you. Go ahead. Yeah, Marlene?
My father passed from Parkinson's, and he had brain surgery. And before I knew that you have it too, Parkinson's, he had where you have to be awake. And I was wondering, could they have used meditation during that kind of surgery?
Where you have to be awake? You mean your eyes open?
Right, and they literally take a drill and go into your brain.
Yeah, well, I mean, Janet, you have to have your eyes open when you're doing cataract surgery, and she was meditating. So I think the answer is yes. It's not a normal thing. This is what I teach is an eyes closed technique, right? So but that would be an exception. And here's why it would still work. Even it's an eyes closed technique that I teach you guys. You know, some of you know, probably half of the people here who are live on this call have taken my class. I'm just looking, you know, at the screen, ballpark. So, you know, you do it eyes closed. It's silent. You can do it in a public place, private place, noisy, quiet, doesn't matter. So, but you do it with your eyes closed. Why do you do that? You do it with your eyes closed because it's a turning within process, right? So we're turning within. That's the name of that's what I call the meditation, turning within meditation. So the first thing you would do to turn within is close your eyes. But in the case of a cataract surgery, or in your situation with your dad, it's not like you're watching TV in the middle of the surgery where you're focusing on something external, you see? So you have to have your eyes open in that situation. So would you prefer to have your eyes closed? Yeah, but you can't. If you're having cataract eye surgery, you can't have your eyes closed. It's open. It's okay. But are you kind of sort of more internal anyway when you're in that surgery situation? Yeah, you see? So that's it's kind of a happy medium you have to deal with, because you have to have your eyes open in that situation that you just gave, right, Marlene? Does it make sense? Yeah, you're still muted.
He said it was the most painful, awful surgery he'd ever had.
Yeah, so the meditation would help for sure. Yeah, even in that situation. Yeah, I think we got a couple of hands here. Juana, good to see you again. You want to?
Hi.
Hey.
Hi. Yes, someone was ahead of me. Kirsten was ahead of me, though.
Oh, was she? Okay, go. I didn't see whose hand. Kristen, you want to go? Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So is the meditation, can a person lay down, or do they have to sit up? And then what is the word? Is it a word the person chooses, or is it a word that's assigned?
Yeah, no, I give you it's a sound that I give you. So sometimes people call it a word, but it's not really a word, because words have meaning. Words have meaning. So it's a sound that I give you. But can you do it lying down? The short answer is yes. Most people prefer to do it sitting, and then they lie down afterwards to rest after they meditate typically, or you can sit and do the rest period after the technique part also. Yeah. But can you do it? The short answer is yes. Can you do it lying down? And if somebody like Sharon, and I've meditated many times when she's been in the hospital in the past, hopefully she won't be in the hospital like that in the future, fingers crossed. But yeah. You know, she you know, and Sharon's not the only person I've meditated with in the hospital, you know, and so back in the 1970s and 80s, I taught people in hospitals. I literally, you know, this is before the internet, computers, and virtual everything. I would walk into a hospital and I'm in the room teaching the person. So they're lying down, obviously. It's my point. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually worse when I sit up. Like right now, I'm getting that chronic migraine and on this side of my head just from sitting right now.
Yeah, well, you know, Rosary will tell you, and I think Rosary's okay with me telling you this, with her pain and her Parkinson's, and it exacerbates it, you know, her pain, and as she has described her discomfort, Rosary's position is 45 degrees. That's her comfort position. And you know, I jokingly say to Rosary, because we meditate so often together, sometimes, you know, during various times we've meditated so many times together, I'd say, Rosary, assume the position. So it's I joke with her because it's a 45 degrees. She says, I'm in the position now, and it's 45 degrees. That's her comfort. So I always tell people, Kristen, whatever is comfortable. Look, I'm not going to name names because I keep, you know, things private unless people, you know, become public, you know, publicly say something. But, you know, I have some students who've had terrible bike accidents. I have one student in the UK, and he's a competitive bicyclist, let's just say, and got hit by a car. And I don't know how, I think he told me he flew like, you know, 10 meters in the air, you know, 30 feet. Probably. And he has, I don't know how many rods and, you know, how much metal he has in his spine. He's a lot of pain, okay? And he cannot, so he, you know, he can't sit comfortably at all, right? So yeah. he gets into a comfortable position, whatever it is at that moment that I'm meditating with him. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome. Yeah. Juana, I think you're next, and then Carol after that.
Yeah, I wanted to share a little bit about my experience. I signed up with Kel last year, early last year, and I really enjoyed it for a while. But what I noticed, I was responding really well to Kelvin's voice. I don't know what's about his voice, but I started doing the meditation with the sound. And at some point, it was so bad for me that I would close my eyes and would react so badly that I scared myself in the meditation. So he was talking about that titration, and I had a really hard time titrating. And I think my pain wasn't so much, well, I've had accidents and I've had surgeries and all sorts of stuff, but I think mine was mostly emotional pain, having grown up in a country that was starved and watching people being starved and being humiliated. Whew, there you go, being humiliated, and then moving to a country that blames everything else. So one of the things I connected with Kelvin very much is his idea that it doesn't matter, you cross bound, who you are as a person has nothing to do with your national identity, nothing to do with your sexual, nothing to do with anything. You're this like higher mind. And just the thought that somebody in the world has this helped me when I actually couldn't meditate. So just thinking of Kelvin, thinking of his thought pattern and how he stands for what's authentic in the world and owning a man's power, I think that helped me a lot, irrespective of meditation. And I found that for a while, I really had to look at the core of these emotional wounds and unmet, and I had a lot of back pain and, as I said, surgeries and whatnot. But, and I got back, I mean, I never stopped, but I got back more, feeling more safe within the meditation as well, because it was so intense for me. But as I said, sometimes I would just listen to Kelvin's voice, and one of the things that I realized I couldn't ask anybody for help. So I had a surgery in which my abdominal wall was completely cut vertically from belly button down in Norway, in a foreign country, not speaking the language. And that was not a problem for me. The problem for me was to ask anybody in the airport to lift my handbag. So that was like, what the heck? And so I'm one of the people who actually didn't even use Kelvin the way he offered. So it's an encouragement, actually, I think, for everybody else to just please call him, because he's so available, and that is so rare. Mm. And to have somebody who has this kind of power and this kind of mind, and I kind of was in this blame myself, feeling guilty that so many other people need him and so many other people could benefit. But it's like, wait a minute, I don't, but I did. Just so you know, even though I wasn't on calls, I was listening to your voice, to your meditations. So there is something really powerful about the presence, about the voice, and about the just a really powerful thought pattern that you put out in the world that was immensely, yeah, I don't know, just immensely helpful. I think it's more like it's beyond the physical pain. I think when I connect with that kind of thought form, for me, the pains goes away, just because I know somebody thinks that high about humanity. And so that's what I want to say.
Thank you for sharing.
And the pain is reducing. I still have some, but
yeah, thank you for sharing that. It's a very interesting perspective, Juana, and I'm very touched by what you said. Yeah, because for those people who don't know, I have a lot of videos out there for my students, and then I have my public YouTube channel also. So my ideas are out there to think about, and if those ideas, obviously I put them out there because I want to help people. So if they are helpful, it's always great to hear from somebody like you, Juana, who has been helped by them. That's awesome. One, thank you for sharing that. One idea that you talked about, I want to underscore, and want to mention this idea that I want to encapsulate in one simple sentence. She talked about how she realized she's not her national identity. She used that phrase and so forth. That there's something unique about herself, which is separate from or national identity or anything else and so forth and so on, however somebody may define themselves. And so the simple one sentence that I teach people and remind people is that we are the experiencer of all the experiences we are having. And however we may define ourselves, either nationally, ethnically, religiously, politically, educationally, sports team wise. I mean, you just pick, we got the NFL playoffs going on, so it's on my mind. A lot of people are like, oh, I am totally a Raiders person or a Chiefs or a Bucks or a, whatever, Rams or whatever team that's still left in the playoffs. I think the, one of them I mentioned is not, but the 49ers or whoever, Packers, people are they identify with that. Those, people who are like that from a sports standpoint. I used to be like that. I'm much more now, but it's like, those are experiences, and we can be passionate about those things, and that's fine. I'm not saying to be a robot, but that's not who we are. Our identity, that's not who our identity is. They showed pictures the other day of all of these Dallas Cowboys fans distraught at the end of the game, crying, what they would call grown men crying, grown men, whatever that means, but grown men and women crying in the stands at the end, as the clock went to 0 and the Dallas Cowboys lost. I mean, okay, I get it, you can be bummed out, and so forth. But are you overwhelmed by the experience because you've lost yourself in the experience and you've misidentified who you are with the experience? That's the thing. So it's not about being a robot. You can be passionately involved in experience. That's not what I'm saying. But I think that's what I want to underscore about from one of these things I just pulled out from what Juana said. We are the experiencer of our experiences. We are unique from everybody, all the other 8 billion humans on planet Earth. Each of us is unique. We have our own perspective, we have our own beliefs, we have our own way of thinking about things, we have our own way of loving and appreciating ourselves and others. All of that's unique to us. And we need to embrace that uniqueness that each of us, I think, has. And where does that come from? That strength to embrace who we are, and I'll get to you in a minute, Carol. That strength of who we are and embracing that comes from what? It comes from inner security within ourselves. And that's where the meditation is crucial in helping us shore up, strengthen that inner strength within ourselves, so that regardless of whatever's happening outside of ourselves, we're not overwhelmed by it. Even if the Dallas Cowboys lose the game and we are an avid Dallas Cowboys fan, which is fine. We don't lose who we are in it. That's what I mean when I say we're the experiencer of our experiences. And in terms of our discussion today about physical pain, it fits right in, because essentially that's why Janet and Sharon and Rosary feel like the pain dissipates, may even go away, but not always, but at least dissipates and reduces significantly. Why? Because the meditation, in a sense, not intellectually, but it experientially reminds the person that that's who they are, the experiencer. It's not the pain. They're not the pain. Their mind is separate. It's distinct from the body. They influence each other. Yes, we talked about, I said that right at the beginning today, right? They influence each other, absolutely. But that's not who we are. We are the experiencer of the body and all of our other experiences in our life, Dallas Cowboys, whatever. Okay. Carol?
Yeah. Hi, Kelvin. Can you or one of the panelists explain a little more about meditating into the pain? Because my understanding of the technique is that when you have a thought or something, you bring yourself back to the sound, which would be taking you away from the thoughts. So if I'm thinking, oh my God, my back hurts like hell.
Yeah. Well,
what do you actually do?
Yeah, I'm gonna make one summary statement, then I want Sharon to speak to this, because or any of the others can chime in as well. But remember the fourth rule in the technique: Carol? No.
I don't.
All right.
Sorry.
But that's the short answer, you know, is yeah, you do go back to the sound when it's comfortable. If the pain is so intense, are you comfortable? No.
No.
So what do you never violate? You never violate the no forcing rule and the be comfortable rule. So if you're not comfortable and you would have to force to think the sound, do you think it? No, that's the fourth rule, right?
Okay.
Right? So Sharon, you want to talk about that? Because I know you did this.
Yeah, it's a really interesting technique because I actually do other techniques too, where, okay, we're body scan and focusing on different things, or, okay, let's focus on the pain. Let's be curious about it, all of those meditations. But I found that in this, my mind's going into a little walk into my pain in my gut. Okay, let's bring it back to the sound, and somehow not chasing away the pain, but, bringing it back to the sound. For me, it was actually more effective than the let's focus on the pain. Let's be curious about the pain. Let's see the relationship with the pain, where I was like, I don't want to focus on the pain, So it was really helpful. And I'm thinking that maybe that was also maybe, and Janet could speak to this, maybe helpful with, without, doing the surgery. Okay, my eyeball is out. They're poking my eye. Oh, the sound, bringing it back to the sound, bringing it back to the sound. Oh, we're done, Miss Janet. Oh, wow. Okay. So I'm thinking it's,
yeah. So the key thing in what Sharon's saying, Carol, is that when she could go back to the sound, she was not forcing herself to go back to the sound. She was gently doing that. And so Rosary talked about that idea of being gentle with the sound. And so gently. So if you can think the sound along with pain, that's okay too, right? That's what Sharon's describing. But if the pain, let me give you an example of if I had this is my personal example from the other day, like 2 weeks ago. All right. I did this really stupid thing. People who've had accidents, accidents. I'm not talking about car accidents that you don't have any control over. I've been in those too, where other people are stupid. But when I've been stupid and careless, and created an accident for myself, it's usually because I'm done something dumb. That's what I mean by stupid, right? I did something dumb. So careless. So this happened to me a couple of weeks ago, Carol. I was like this. I just finished teaching a class just like this. I'm sitting on this couch, right? Got these wires and plugged into, you can't see, but they're plugged into my laptop, and I got my power. Let's see, like I got to plug my power cord in right now, actually. Good thing I looked. I got my power cord plugged in. Anyway, the point is that I finished the meeting and I got up and I was not paying attention. Now I run the cord. I have a certain way I run the cord around, so I'm not going to walk across the cord. Well, I was lazy or something before I sat. He's like, oh, I got to pull this over. And the cord was just across this area of my little living room area here. And I caught my left foot underneath the cord. And sorry. My left foot stepped on the cord. It would have been better if I caught it. So I was stepped on the cord. So now I got the cord stationary. And then my right foot got caught under the cord and it was trapped, and I lift up my right foot. Now I don't know that my foot is under the cord or stepping on the cord. I'm not paying attention to this. I'm just walking. Okay. So what happened was I know I got caught in something. So I forced my right foot up. I was like, what? Maybe it was my exercise bike. I wasn't thinking. It was just, you're in the moment, right? As you're falling, I'm falling while this is all happening. Okay. I'm falling forward. So I'm trying to not fall flat in my face. After the fact, I realized that's what happened, what I just described to you. My point is that my right foot comes flying out and it comes slamming down on the ground really hard. And I thought I broke my right big toe. It was so painful, but it wasn't painful right away. First, it was my heel that was painful. I thought that I'd cracked something in my heel. But then I iced it and so forth, and that pain went away. I thought, oh, I'm good. Well, that night, about 6 or 8 hours later, my right toe is now throbbing all night long. This lasted for at least 24 hours, non-stop throbbing foot pain. I could not think my sound or anything else other than have throbbing toe. It lasted my whole night. Okay, sleep. Maybe I slept, I don't know, a few minutes here and there. I probably did, but I wasn't aware of falling asleep. Okay. I'm sure people have had some nights like that. You know what I mean? And so, you know, I did the whole usual thing. RICE, you know what that is? Whatever, it's ice it. I can't remember the R stands for. Rest, ice, you know, ice, compression and elevation. Okay, so I did all that. You know, I couldn't really compress it, but anyway, big toe. And but I did everything, and it's elevated, but it's just throbbing pain. All right. So when I'm meditating, Carol, that's the fourth that I had to exercise the fourth rule, meaning don't force and anything. And my mind was just on my toe, and it was okay. And that's what you do in that situation, because then my body is healing my toe by pumping more blood into it. The meditation, as Sharon shared with us, those of you who didn't catch what Sharon said, pulse ox is a thing you put on your finger, and they measure your I don't know how it works, but anyway, it's some magical technological medical thing, and they can somehow measures your oxygen percentage or level in your blood, just externally. Just put on I just got a physical from my doctor literally last Tuesday, or this past Tuesday, a few days ago, and he did on me, and I said, so what is it? He said 99. My pulse ox was 99, which is really, really good. Okay, your oxygen level. So, but my point is that in your meditation, Sharon shared how she meditated and her pulse oxygen level went up. And so that's what it does, is increases we noticed this from the experiments in 1970s, increases your oxygenation. Well, that means more pain in my, I'm making believe this is my foot. I understand this is my hand. I haven't lost my mind. Anyway, so it's like, but this is my big toe, and the pain was just like, oh, you know, so then you would just go with it. That's a distinction from what Sharon's saying, because, you know, can you just allow your mind to think the sound along with the pain? Yes. If that's the choice you choose to do, unless it's so overwhelming, you're just consumed by the pain, then you just be in the pain. But by the time you've been meditating even just a few days, your nervous system has learned how to turn on this parasympathetic. And so even though you're not in the technique mode that I teach you guys, sometimes, you know, those of you who've taken my class, your body has turned on the parasympathetic. And that's the key. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sharon, do you want to make a comment, and then I'll go to Chris?
I was just thinking, and by utilizing, you know, the meditation, the technique, the turning within, when we're not in pain, you know, when we're not in, you know, emotional or physical pain, when we do have pain in our lives and we're humans, that's what happens. Look what just happened, you know, with Kelvin there. It can increase our capacity to, I don't want to say tolerate, but
I think that's true.
Tolerate, right? Yeah. So that's what I'm thinking. So instead of, okay, I'm gonna do this meditation technique because I'm only gonna do it when I'm in pain, or I'll pick up the technique because, you know, I'm a pain patient. But actually even utilizing the technique even before, you know, because hey, life happens, and the unpredictability of preventative measures, right?
No, it's a beautiful point that Sharon's making. I just want to emphasize her point. Good tag teaming, Sharon, as usual. So, like, I use a friend of mine as an example. I'm not suggesting that you all go run out and follow his example, but I'm going to give you as his example. I mean, he and I have he's been meditating about a year. Well, I know exactly this lifetime. He's been meditating a year less than I have, because I introduced him to meditation when we were at Dartmouth together. He's 2 years behind us, Mitch. But my friend, George, gets dental work, including fillings, with 0 Novocaine. I'm not that extreme. I'm just telling you, I don't go that route. So I'm not suggesting that you do, but I'm just using him as an example of what Sharon's saying. Just preventive. She's suggesting that meditating as a preventive way, because what happens when you have the pain, like I did, I've been meditating 50 years now, and I had the pain just a couple of weeks ago. My mind automatically can experience the pain and not be overwhelmed by it, and just be in it, and it dissipates the pain automatically without me even having to do the technique anymore. All right? So that's really where y'all want to get to, right? Because everyone's going to experience physical pain at some point. The issue is, it comes back to the experiencer and the experience thing that want to help me elucidate here. And it's that our mind is sovereign. It's a unique entity, each of us individually, but also it is sovereign within each of us, separate and distinct from our physical body. Influenced by, yes, back and forth influenced, absolutely, but not the same as, not the equivalent of, in my opinion. Again, you may disagree with that, that's okay. But experientially, doesn't matter what your belief system is about mind, body, experientially, the meditation is going to help, as Sharon said, on a preventive level going forward as well, regardless of whether you have physical pain now or not. Kristen, I think you had your hand up also.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing about the fillings.
Wow.
I'm a hypnotherapist. Some of you don't know me, but I've been doing hypnotherapy for quite a few years. It just brought it up in my mind when you were talking about the guy that gets the dental work without any Novocaine. Oops, start my video.
If you want, I wasn't sure if you were aware that you were not.
Well, I don't really want to show myself because
you don't have to. You don't have to. That's okay.
I just have to say, I love that Kristen is like laying down and listening to your body, and with that headache
Oh, thank
coming
you.
on,
I've got my ice
I think
pack
that's
on my
great.
neck.
Yeah. That's
Yes.
fine. Yeah,
So
I
anyway, like what I was going to say is what I was going to say changed since I heard you say that, but I actually had a DVD in my possession of a hypnotherapy. He was the guy in charge of the hypnotherapy division that I was in. He actually made a recording. He could put himself into a state of hypnosis where he could get surgery. He had to have a hernia repair in his stomach. And they actually, he laid on the table and he did this self-induction hypnosis. They cut open his lower abdomen and pulled out some of his intestines and made the repair. And he had a smile on his face, and they put his stomach back together and they stitched him up, and you could see that it was real and everything. And I was just absolutely shocked. And I mean, I would not, as a hypnotherapist, probably want to be in charge of doing that for someone. I mean, it was pretty amazing. But
yeah, so it's just these things are. Is it possible? Yes, that's why I used my friend George as an example. But is it possible? I choose not to. I get, if I get a filling, I get or whatever. So it's like those things are possible, and it's a good teaching example. I'm not using it I'm not suggesting it. It's not a point of advice to people.
Right,
you should do this. You should just do your surgery on yourself, Rosary. Do your own cataract surgery. Why even bother go? No, that's not the advice. So
right, but also
Kelly's husband out of business here. He's a doctor anyway. But it's like, no, but that's not the point. The point is it elucidates this point that Juana, stirred up in my mind to make that our mind is not the same as the body, and the mind that's
Yeah.
why that's possible. That's why you're what the example
Yeah.
you're giving, that's why that's possible. Now everybody's individual, and the probability,
Everybody's different.
everybody's different, and the probability of 8 billion people doing what that guy did is probably not very high probability. But
Exactly.
but to Sharon's point, which is somewhere in the middle, which is my teaching
Yeah.
point, is that if we can recognize that, number one, first it's a recognition that the mind and the body are separate, distinct. And the simple example that I give that's very quick is, you go to sleep at night and you're dreaming. Like I had a dream last night. People wonder, do I dream? Yeah, I dream. Am I still releasing junk out of my warehouse of baggage and garbage? Yeah. So even after 50 years? Yeah. So, I mean, if you were in the room with me, I think I would have woken you up last night, because it woke myself up and I yelled something in one of my dreams. My point is that when we dream, I'm not there with that dog who had alligator teeth, who was trying to bite me in my dream. No, I'm lying in my bed in Los Angeles, California. There's no big dog with this weird mouth in my room. No, it's just our mind and our bodies are different. They're separate. Mind has experiences. But that's the point. That's the point to underscore. And then experientially, to Sharon's point, by turning within in this way, we can actually establish experientially, because then it doesn't just become an intellectual thing. Otherwise, it's just an intellectual thing. Lots of books out there and YouTube videos.
Oh, yeah.
The mind's different from the body and all that. But if we can experience it spontaneously, that's the thing. That's a state of being. That's not a state of doing or thinking. It's a state of being. That's what this can bring about.
Something to just go to. And what I was going to say before you started talking about the dentistry thing, and it made me think of that, was when I was a young child, I was so much like, because my mom, she would teach us some really cool things, how to see auras and how to play past life games. I had the coolest mom in the world, which was really fun. But I was just a wild child, building tree forts and riding horses and everything. But I sometimes would hurt myself. And so I used to do experiments in my mind, like, ooh, what if I felt the pain, when I would just have a minor injury, like, what if I really felt the pain and went with the pain, and oh, my finger was really throbbing, like, ooh, what does that feel like? And then the more I went with the pain and inside the pain, the less it hurt. And I thought that was really interesting. But now, as I'm older, I'm in my 56-year-old body, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have so much pain. It's too much. It's like I'm flooded. Like, I'm at the beach and the waves are coming in so fast, I can't get on top of it. It's like overwhelming.
Well, the other thing that this meditation is known to do is change chemistry, and it's known to create, I can't remember what chemicals, maybe Kelly can tell us because she's married to a doctor, but chemicals that create that are pain reducing chemicals in our bodies too. So that's another side effect, we could say, or of the technique that I teach, because it can trigger the production of chemicals that can mitigate and reduce pain. One thing that Rosary briefly alluded to, that I don't know if people caught this or if this was confusing, so let me just give you a little bit more detail. She mentioned, I told her the Joe Namath story, and Joe Namath, those of you who may know his name from the NFL, he's in the NFL Hall of Fame, a Hall of Fame quarterback, New York Jets. I think it was the first time they won the Super Bowl in 1969. But he learned to meditate. He learned this technique, and then my friend Greg taught him to meditate. And Greg is on my nonprofit board. And Greg just recently told me this story, I want to say a couple of years ago. That's recent for me, a couple of years ago, because this happened in the 1970s when Greg and I were teaching meditation together. And I'd never heard this story from him back then. I guess we were just too busy. but Namath had either shoulder surgery or knee surgery. Namath had like 6 or 8 surgeries. You know, he started getting pretty banged up playing quarterback. That's back in the days. Those of you too young to know, like Christopher, I'm just looking, I see you here. Chris, one of my younger students, you know, you could hit quarterbacks back then. I mean, you could hit them full force, linebackers, safeties, cornerbacks. You could hit them and you could face plant them. You hit them just like you would hit anybody on a football team. You could tackle them, in other words, and you could bury them into the ground.
Wow.
Drill them with a 300-pound or a 200. Back then they weren't even that big, but 250-pound linemen could drill the quarterbacks. So the quarterbacks, you know, sometimes into frozen turf, you know, in New York, you know, in the winter, November, December, football games, January football games. So Namath was really beat up and he learned to meditate. And after one of his surgeries, he called Greg up and he said, man, I'm in this hospital and they won't give me any more painkillers because I'm maxed out. So Greg hopped on a plane. He went down to New York from Boston, where we were living at the time. And he sat with him. And Greg didn't call it this, but he taught him the 4th rule. Those of you who know what I call the 4th rule in meditation, now you've taken my class, he taught Namath that. And Greg just was just smart, savvy guy. And he figured it out. And he just told Joe Namath, he just said, don't focus on anything. Don't resist anything and let your mind go where it's going to go. And if you can think the sound, great. If you can't, wherever your mind goes. And of course, he couldn't think the sound because he was just absorbed by the pain of his shoulder or knee or wherever it was. He had his surgery. And Namath opened his eyes up after 10 minutes and he goes, that was magic. What did you do? Greg said, I didn't do anything. You did it. I just told you, don't resist. Don't resist. And then that's what you're saying, Kristen, right? Not resisting, because the typical knee-jerk react, no pun intended, Joe. Sorry, Joe.
Right.
But, you know, the typical knee-jerk default reaction is to resist. I don't want the pain. I don't want the pain. What's it do? It makes the pain greater, makes it more intense. Right. And so by doing the opposite, it actually reduces the pain. That's the thing. But it's a simple, sounds so simple, but the execution of it, the doing of it. Hey, Chaplain Mario's on. Cool, very cool. You know, that's the thing. Sharon, want to share? Go ahead. Thank you.
Thanks. I was thank you, Kristen. That was great information. I was thinking when you said getting kind of like with the mind and body, and then there's the body and the mind. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like you hear those stories where, and actually, I know I had a doozy of a time so far in this earth with accidents and illnesses, but I remember I had a pretty severe accident in 1992, and I went kind of halfway through the windshield, and I just remember having this like surreal feeling, and everything slowed down, and you know, it was just like almost out of your body. And I'm thinking that if we, with this meditation, you kind of you get your mind out of the way, so the body, which knows what to do, which, you know, has those it's physiological. I know you do that class on that, mm-hmm. But with those neurotransmitters that can are natural painkillers, you know. So if we can just get our mind out of the way, so our body can do what it knows how to do. Oh, the body is feeling the pain, shoot down some, you know, oxytocin and endorphins and all these things. And all, if we can just get out of the way of the resistance. Right.
Exactly. You know, I mean, I appreciate it when people, Rosary, you know, Janet and everybody, you know, and Juana, you know, people.
Very hard to do, though. Very hard to do.
Well, I appreciate it when people thank me, but essentially I remind you what Sharon's saying is that essentially, reframe it, I am teaching you guys how to access what exists in every human nervous system. The beauty of the human nervous system is that it will create the appropriate, whether it's oxytocin or this or whatever chemicals, at the appropriate time, if we stop trying to control it. That's the key. And the controlling of the body by the mind is what Sharon's referring to as kind of getting out of the way, right? That's the issue. And so you guys have taken, those of you who have taken my class know that that's an integral part of the class, right? Is getting out of our own way, basically. That's what I'm teaching you guys to do. Because if we can, then what Sharon just described so eloquently is exactly what can happen. And the body will do what it needs to do at that moment. And whether it's in meditation or outside of meditation, because mostly what we're talking about today is outside of meditation, right? The body will do what it needs to do. Basically,
And trusting in that.
and trusting in the body will do what it needs to do. Yeah, because trusting comes from what? Trusting comes from almost a training experience of the mind trusting itself by what? By the mind getting more comfortable with itself. That's simple layperson language of what I teach people to do through the technique does, just automatically. It's your mind getting more comfortable with itself and not resisting. And those of you who've taken the class, you think about all the tips and techniques and instructions that I've given you as it relates to the technique itself. It's all in alignment with not resisting who we are and whatever's going on at that moment. What does that do? It increases our acceptance, our self-acceptance. Those of you who've read, this, my purple book, I talk about here about self-acceptance, and I talk about it intimately, the idea of self-acceptance in here in one of the 67 essays in this book that I've written, about this idea of self-acceptance merging and marrying up and kind of jigsaw puzzling with, if you will, meditation and the experience of turning within. And so that's what Sharon's talking about, because increasing that trust comes from what? It comes from within us and increasing our comfort with ourselves. And not just comfort, but also the trust comes from acknowledging and recognizing that our decision-making becomes better. Outside, I'm talking about outside meditation, I'm talking about in our waking state life. Our decision-making becomes better and better. We make better choices. Oh, that choice to meet this desire that I have based on the objective that I want to accomplish, oh, that worked. I figured it out, it worked. That's where trust is based on. It's based on experience, based on our thinking and our desires meeting our objectives, right? And we become more trusting of our mind and so forth. But it starts in the technique. If you think about those of you who've taken the technique, the actual class, learned the technique that I teach, you think about all these little tips and instructions, and they're all in alignment with that, right? And then it affects us in our waking state. Marlene, did you raise your hand? Yeah, Chaplain Mario, enjoying this session. Great, really great to have you here. Marlene, you're muted.
Yeah,
there you go.
accidentally I did, but I did think it was interesting that Sharon and Rosary and also Janet mentioned that.
You're muted again. You hit something again, it muted.
Just taking the edge off the pain lets your whole body can let it go. Then it's just that intensity, and I just thought it was interesting. They all had mentioned that, but no, it was an accident, and I raised my hand.
Yeah. No, that's okay. No, it's a great comment. Good comment. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, Christopher. Good to see you.
How you doing, Mr. Chin?
Good to see you. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. So
one of my New Jersey buddies, Central New Jersey.
Yeah. So obviously, me and you had joined this course, and I have received very positive benefits throughout. And I have to tell you, I've definitely developed more self-respect internally since doing the meditation. And I have to tell you, when I first started off the new year, I was feeling very, very well. I had a very good first day of New Year. It lasted for another, 2-3 weeks. And then, I could definitely say that the intensity and the frequency has died down. As we speak, I have no chest pains. My head feels good. But what I do realize sometimes is that, anxiety, because I'm on the mental spectrum, we have our own story we discuss with you, but the thing is, mental anxiety, it can lead to physical discomfort,
Yes.
you know? And the thing you told us, because when we let go, we have the self-acceptance, it leads to less suffering because we're accepting where we are at that moment. And especially for me, because I felt like great for the past 2 weeks. It's like, oh man, I'm having these low days. That's you switch and practice the self-acceptance. And, regardless, because I'm always consistent no matter what, I'm at work day, I'm still meditating, doing my training, going to work, doing whatever. Sometimes, like I text you before, in your environment where you're living, it can have certain effects on you. But like you said, our mind is sovereign. I have a choice if I'm glad to affect me. Now, is it going to affect you? Of course. But the intensity and the frequency amongst your peers, your family members, that can decrease as well because you have your own self-respect. Like, all right, man, I'm doing my own thing. But I definitely hearing Sharon's story and especially with the Parkinson's, to experience physical pain, that discomfort, helps you put perspective. Like, hey, man, I'm learning from these people who, had, compared to them, it could have worse stories, but of course, we're all our own unique thing. But one of my physical discomforts is, most of my physical pain is gone, but sometimes I have like this physical discomfort, not even pain, like a discomfort in around my wrist area, and I do realize that this is not from a physical pain. This is from an emotional or a mental discomfort. Because, like I said, the beginning of the new year, being with friends, going to the Poconos just about a week ago, I felt very connected. I felt whole. I felt love. I felt connected. But of course, when you're by yourself, or not even by yourself, when you die down from that and you learn to readjust, adapt, adaptability, because like I said before, I'm about to move again to Tom's River. I have a lot of new things approaching.
Right.
So, I definitely do notice every time I let go, I use the meditation, my thoughts decrease as much. My pain, discomfort does feel more fulfilled, that fulfilling nature. So I do know where it comes from, the certain discomfort. It's just sometimes like when you let go, sometimes you can say, all right, what do I need to do to fulfill this certain discomfort that I have? You know what I'm saying? Obviously, asking more self-acceptance, more self-love, as you pointed out. So it's sometimes it's not necessarily a question I'm asking you because you, like you say, you give us the tools to have our own answers because we all have them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
let me make a comment on that. So I think the simple one sentence on that, Christopher, is to recognize that life is never perfect.
Correct.
And sometimes we have off days, and it's okay.
Yeah.
Us to have off days. We just don't feel right, or something, or things don't go right all the time. Sometimes that happens, and it's not always within our control. So you'll hear me say this one sentence a lot in a lot of my classes: control what we can control and let go of what we can't control, because we can't control everything. We can control certain things in our lives, and so we should control those things. But a lot of things in our lives are out of our control.
Yeah.
Sometimes those things that are out of our control might be physical. All right. Sometimes those things that are physical are within our control. We shouldn't have eaten this food that we were allergic to, but we ate it, and either out of mistake or because we really wanted to anyway. And I'll get hives and I'll deal with it, or whatever. Maybe that's not such a great decision, but maybe we have control over that. But other times we don't have control, especially we don't have control over other people.
Yeah,
Other people are making just choices all the time, and we don't have control, nor should we have control. Would we want, ask ourselves, would we want other people, everybody in the world, to have control over my choices? No. I want to make at least some of my choices. I want to make all of the choices I can make. And yes, they influence my choices. I'll accept that because that's reality. So that's what I mean when I say things aren't perfect, meaning they don't always go the way we want them to. That's what I mean by perfect.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And so that's okay. And so we go with it. So life to me is the equanimity. The real sweet spot in life to me is being in a state of contentment, regardless of what is going on outside of ourselves. So I don't use the word happy. I do sometimes. You'll see in my essays, sometimes in my lectures, sometimes I'll talk about happiness. Okay, because it's a phrase everybody uses. But to me, it's more contentment. Because like an example, I just went to Boston to my uncle's funeral. I was pretty close to my uncle. I was like their surrogate child before they adopted two children, who are obviously my cousins. But that was, they were well into their 30s. So when, and my aunt and uncle met when they were in high school, so
Right.
so I was it with them for about 12 years, at least, maybe longer, 15 years. And so he just died. I went to his funeral. Was I happy? No. Could I maintain a level of inner peace? And that's what I mean by contentment. Yes.
Right.
So, to me, that's where equanimity in life lies, Christopher, is
Right.
being in a state of contentment, even if I might be having an off day, I just don't feel right, whatever. But there's an inner peace that kind of underlies that all
Right.
the time. That's the state of equanimity that I think people talk about and write about. It's not a state of perfection in the way that some people would like it to be, because
Right.
there's
Right.
always influence from other people, other minds we don't have control over. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
Yeah. Good. Thank you
Kelvin,
for sharing that. Yeah.
before you go to Connie, I just wanted to say to Christopher,
Yes.
I know, I really know now and appreciate and so grateful for healthy days and healthy moments, because I have known such, pain and suffering and darkness. I am aware of the light because I have been in darkness, So it's kind of that, without those not so good days, whatever they are, don't underestimate your not so good days or your rest, no comparison,
It's a great point.
Yeah.
you know what non-pain in your wrist feels like, because you have known what that pain feels like.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful point. And in addition to what you're saying, Sharon, because I know you, we've worked closely together. I know you. And in addition to what you're saying, and this is not just unique to you, I think this is true for, people who are aware of what I'm going to say. You have worked through those situations where they've been difficult. And by working through those situations in the various ways that you have over, these, 20, 30 years that you've been having these challenging situations physically, you have learned more about yourself and how to navigate life by working through those as well. Not just the experience itself of seeing the contrast, which is what you're pointing out about, which is true. But in addition to that, there's a richness to who your personality is. Not that we would wish what you've gone through on anybody else, but you have taken that and you have become a more enriched person from that. And it's like, I was talking to my friend Ken, who's a psychotherapist in New York, and we were talking about this issue of some people. I'll just give you an example since I'm talking about NFL. He and I were texting about the NFL, and some players in the NFL do not have an appreciation for things because they've been coddled since they were 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, and they started playing whatever it's called, Pee-wee football. And now they're a star NFL player making hundreds of millions of dollars, and they've been coddled throughout their whole life. And they've never had to work through anything. And now they act out when they're 25, 30, 35 years old, and they do really stupid things. What Ken and I would consider stupid things that a mature person would not do, because they've never had to work through anything more complicated than running a route properly and analyzing a defense properly, which is complicated. It can be complicated, but nothing from a life challenging standpoint, really.
Yeah, that reminds me, because you said, you know, with what, you know, some people have haves, have nots. And I grew up with, you know, 3 other siblings, house of 5, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom. You know, I was the youngest of 3, so I always had the hand-me-downs. And, you know, we had the beat up station wagon and Chevy, grew up in the 70s kid. And I was happy. I was happy when I got those hand-me-downs. And then when I, you know, kind of grew up and I had my adventure of being store manager of Ann Taylor and all these things. And then I was like, oh, leather, silk, you know, Kate Spade, Burberry, all these things. And then I was happy. And now it's, I'm happy if I had, you know, what do they say, BMW or a Chevy or station wagon, because then you know the value of also the Chevy and the station wagon. And maybe those Burberry, and I'm just throwing out names, it's not, you know, it's almost like what you said, you were not content, but you know, you were at your uncle's funeral and there was, you know, you're sad but you're content. And I think it's also, you know, that non-attachment as well of I'm not attached to the joy, I'm not attached to the pain, I'm just, you know, honoring what comes up.
Yeah, and it goes to the experience issue we've talked about earlier that want to, you know, initiated in my mind again, that we are the experiencer of all those experiences, of the BMW, of the Burberry, of the beat up Chevy, of the beat up station wagon, and so forth, and the hand-me-down clothes. We are not them. That's the thing.
Yeah. And if Kristen is here really fast, I was just thinking, Kristen, with you know, when you said when you're younger with the pain and the throbbing and being curious about it, and then now it's like a tsunami of different painful experiences. And I'm wondering if just being curious about that, you know, look, here's the tsunami of pain coming my way, you know, and just being curious about that. I don't know, it might be interesting.
Yeah.
Might be interesting.
Thank you,
Sorry. I know Connie is
Connie?
waiting.
Yeah, thanks, Sharon. Connie, you got to unmute yourself.
Okay.
Here you go.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Christopher, I think you look great. Cause I started a couple of months ago, and I remember you on Zoom, and you look like you look very enlightened.
Yeah.
Your energy's light. You look good, and I just wanted to say too that you know, since I've been meditating, I've noticed I used to get really bad leg cramps that start in the foot and roll right up the leg and behind my knee. Like when I'm driving or rowing, it's very painful. Like I could fall to the floor. And as we were talking today, I noticed I haven't really experienced any body pain since I've been meditating, but I still have a hard time in the morning. My mornings are very hectic. I had 3 cats, you know, and they have different agendas, and just trying to get out, because I'm a teacher, so my mornings are still very like crunched. But if I meditate longer in the evening, it's better for me. And I'm getting my mind, like you were saying, Kelvin, that we can't control the outside. So I'm looking at trying to see what I want from the inside, and I'm finding that things are starting to happen now, you know, like I'm getting my mind down to like a blank slate, and that's what I want, with like not constant thoughts about this and that, or worries or whatever. So so it feels good, like it's like my mind could be a blank slate, and I don't know, it's like, and then the thought that do come is like, what do I want? I want like friendships, and I want you know, I want people to come to me. That's why I haven't been here the last couple of weeks, because people have actually called me and said, hey, let's go do this, and people that I haven't heard from in a while, because that's what I want. I want to you know, I want to connect with people and do things and get things done. So that's what I've been doing.
Great, Connie. Thank you for sharing that. And thanks for sharing your perception of Christopher with Christopher. It's always good for us to hear from other folks about it, because like I see you guys irregularly. You see people regularly, Christopher, and so forth, and you haven't seen Connie for a while. And so she mentioned something and she said, oh, you look great, you know, because she hasn't seen you in weeks. Because, you know, but there's a change in us gradually through this meditation, just little by little by little.
Right.
So it's
Yeah,
beautiful.
and I miss you guys. I mean, I really want to come to every meeting I can. And sometimes, you know, I just get caught up with rowing and everything else.
Hey, Connie,
Yeah.
what I teach is a preparation for activity, for living life. So if you're not here with me in these classes all the time, then you're off meditating and enjoying your life, then that's where it's at. You know, we want to be out living life. You know, it's not about being in a cave meditating all the time. We do this simple technique, 10, 15 minutes each time, twice a day. That's it. You go live your life. This is great. But thank you so much for everybody for sharing today. It's been a great discussion. We've gone almost 2 hours now, so I think I'm going to wrap it. But really, yeah, thanks, Jason. He said, simply, wow, this was incredible. But really great discussion. I'm going to put the recording on YouTube, my YouTube public channel. So feel free to go there and share it with other people who you may know who may benefit from this. And then probably the easiest way for people to reach me, those of you who don't know how to, you know, who may be watching the recording later, just Google my name. Just Google my name, or you can send me a message on my YouTube channel if you're watching this later, or just Google my name and send me a message on one of my websites. I have 4 websites, and you can get to all these different websites that I have just by going to the bottom page of any website, and there's links to the other 3. So feel free to reach out to me. I give a free phone session to anybody about any of the work that I do worldwide. Are you raising your hand, Connie?
Yeah, and tomorrow you have a meeting, right?
Oh, yeah. So for those of you who are taking my class, I have another meditation class to sit in on as a refresher if you've already taken the class. Yeah.
Thank you. Is your YouTube channel listed on the email that is connected to today?
It's a good question. I don't think I put it on. I should have. I'll but you Google my name and Kelvin Chin. There's a bunch of Kelvin Chins out there in the world. Most of them are 20 to 30 years old because a baby book came out in Asia, one of them told me. And then all the parents started naming their kids in Thailand and Taiwan and China and Malaysia. And
okay.
But just Google my name, you'll find me. But it's called, if you type in Kelvin Chin Turning Within, Turning Within. It's called Kelvin Chin Turning Within with no spaces. That's the actual name of my YouTube channel.
Perfect. Very catchy.
Yeah. Okay. Great to see everybody. Rosary, Sharon, Janet, thank you so much for sharing with everybody today. And everybody else who shared and asked questions today. Is very, very helpful for everybody. And, you know, stay safe, stay healthy, eat good food, drink lots of water, and get lots of good sleep, and keep your immune system strong wherever you are in the world.
When is the next meditation class?
I teach a class monthly, a public group class. I teach private classes too, which people can, you know, check in with me separately, privately. But my next group class is in February, but it's overbooked right now. So, and I have a waiting list for that one, but my next available class, I think I have 1 or 2 seats left in March, and then I'm booking my April class after that. Okay.
Thank you.
Good.
Take care.
Take care, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you, Sharon, Janet.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
See you, Christopher.
Bye.
Thanks for sharing, everybody. Juana, everybody.
Great.